Hey everyone, I'm Bambi Francisco Roizen, and this is CRT, Culture, Religion, and Technology. On today's show, Chinese startup DeepSeek takes one step for man and one giant leap for China. And if the left wants to be the party of compassion for immigrant strangers, why do they always sound like they're just looking for cheap labor? Also, after years of American taxpayers paying for woke religious schools, the left has the gall to say Christians are the ones breaking down the wall between church and state. And Bernie Sanders goes nuts over onesies. Finally, two things Elon Musk did that's changed the course of history. Wow, the AI wars have begun. Chinese AI startup DeepSeek released its ChatGPT rival called R1, and it overtook ChatGPT in downloads on the Apple Store. So spooked investors dumped shares of AI stocks, including NVIDIA. That's the chip maker that is basically the only company making money in AI these days. NVIDIA saw nearly $600 billion, or 17% of its market cap, disappear, poof, in one day. Now, if you're not familiar with ChatGPT, it's basically a tool you can use to write essays, find information in really neat and summarized ways. You can even produce legal documents. So some of you may remember a couple of weeks back, Goldman Sachs said that AI tools could essentially create 95% of an IPO prospectus. That is a process that took 6 people to produce. That's 6 jobs basically wiped out by this new AI technology. So this type of cost savings that ChatGPT could usher in, well, basically it helped OpenAI, which is the parent of ChatGPT, it helped that company see its valuation more than double last year. So in October of last year, OpenAI, which by the way launched less than a decade ago, it was valued at $157 billion. This with only being around for about 7 years. On a side note, it took Amazon about 15 years to hit $100 billion in market cap. So OpenAI gets this valuation, even though it's expected to lose $5 billion. But of course, that $5 billion is going toward paying for computing power. And that's why a lot of investors thought, well, it's worth it to value ChatGPT at this price. But what makes this valuation so startling now is that China's DeepSeek revealed that it made its rival AI bot with just under $6 million. Oh, and its technology uses a fraction of the computing power. So same performance, but 90% cheaper. So imagine if you're a company that wants to build on top of ChatGPT or a ChatGPT AI, and now you can save 90 cents on the dollar by using DeepSeek. Well, it seems like a no-brainer. And this revelation that sophisticated AI computing is cheaper than we thought really throws into question how much money is needed to produce and power AI in general. And then the really important question is how much it matters whether that innovation comes from China. Now, Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, warned last year in an op-ed saying that if China wins the AI wars, we'll live in an authoritarian future. Well, that is scary. I mean, I remember the last 4 years, that was pretty authoritarian. Mask mandates, being silenced for saying a simple truth that a man can't be a woman, or that from the Wuhan labs, or that China is a repressive country. A lot of this inability to speak freely, a lot of this censorship, that has to do with China's cognitive war it's waging against the West, against us. That warfare is to sow confusion and deeply divide Americans. So we fight amongst ourselves, which is basically what we've been doing the last 4 years. So should we give China more power? Here's what former World Bank Director Eric Bethel told me about China's hold on America.
Look, it's our time now, right? You guys, good couple hundred years, but now it's our turn. And we mean to replace you as the global power broker. And that means, from a culture and religion standpoint, that means what they've done in China may get expanded throughout the world. In other words, try and buy a Bible in China today. Your social credit score goes, if you could even get one, your social credit score goes down. China is knocking down churches throughout its country, left, right, and center. They're replacing religious values with Xi Jinping thought. You have to read his excerpts and so forth. And so these two systems that I'm describing, the Western system based on our value system, our economic system, and our political system, and theirs, these two systems are not reconcilable. And China has basically been telling everybody, it's going to be us. So just be prepared for it.
China is the least religious country in the world. It's accused of many human rights violations, including the genocide and forced labor of the Uyghurs. This DeepSeek app censors topics related to the Uyghurs and the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989. We've lived through censorship. We've lived through not knowing what is happening in our own country. If we start depending on China's cheap AI tools, isn't this just effectively inviting more censorship? Something to think about. Well, speaking of forced labor, CNN's Jake Tapper put his foot in his mouth by admitting Democrats like loose immigration policies, not because they're compassionate, but because, well, who else is going to do these awful farming jobs? Tapper says we shouldn't deport illegal aliens if that means food prices will go up. This prompted White House Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller to say, you can't be possibly implying you want forced labor, are you?
How does President Trump make sure that the effort to deport people who are not in this country legally doesn't end up hurting Americans who want safe borders, absolutely, but also don't want to see even more higher prices in groceries?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake, you're just asking the question, that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor. I obviously don't think that's what you're implying. Only 1% of alien workers in the entire country work in agriculture. The top destination for illegal aliens are large cities like New York, like Los Angeles, and small industrial towns, of course, all across the heartland, as we've seen with the Biden floods. None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want on this. We don't have 30 minutes.
I don't have a 30. I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm
you
explaining
can come back
to you
and we
your
can talk
audience.
about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer. The illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into our country are not full stop doing farm work. They are not. The illegal aliens he brought in from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, they are not doing farm work. They are in our cities collecting welfare. As for the farmers, there is a guest worker program that President Trump supports. Over time as well, we will transition into automation, so we'll never have to have this conversation ever again. But there's no universe in which this nation is going to allow the previous president to flood our nation with millions and millions of illegal aliens who just get to stay here. And we are especially not going to allow a subset of those illegal aliens to rape and murder our citizens. So we are going to unapologetically enforce our immigration laws. And as I'm sure you will celebrate, we are going to unleash the power and might of the U.S. government to eradicate the presence of transnational threats on our soil.
Stephen Miller is amazing. I mean, legacy media is so much more fun to watch with Donald Trump's 18 varsity team that he's selected to help his administration. Well, we may soon see government-funded Christian charter schools. The Supreme Court agreed to look at a case that will decide on whether the state of Oklahoma can fund a Catholic charter school. Last year, the state Supreme Court of Oklahoma rejected the idea of a state-financed religious school. That school is St. Isidore of Seville. So that ruling now appears to be in jeopardy because the Supreme Court will likely overturn it just based on its past decisions. In 2022, the Supreme Court ruled that parents in Maine could use state vouchers for religious charter schools. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, basically said that not allowing parents to use taxpayer-funded dollars for religious schools, well, that was discrimination against Christian religion and a violation of the First Amendment's free exercise clause. Now, it is true that taxpayer funding has been supporting woke religion for years. I mean, I live in California, and I can tell you, these public schools, they are full of woke ideology. So just take a look at what teachers, math teachers, are learning. Teachers there in California are being trained in what's called equitable math. This is a way to teach math by embracing the woke values of anti-racism. Now take a look at this instructional video. It's a video tutorial, and notice how the instructors are emphasizing the need to change their values and beliefs. This is what teachers are learning.
From the California Mathematics Project, Denise Green, Mathematics, Monterey County Office of Ed, and Ana Banderas, Quetzal Education Consulting. Like Manuel said, we are so thankful for all of their feedback because it really pushed our work. It really pushed our work to a new level. So the purpose of this tool is really to provide teachers an opportunity to examine their actions, their beliefs, their values around teaching mathematics. It's really centered and grounded in practical exercises to reflect. So each module starts with a reflection, or each month starts with a reflection, and the purpose is really to transform instructional practice.
And as Danny said, the hope is that with a lot of times in education, we think about our instructional practices as things on the top about actions, but we really want to kind of dig deeper and think about what are the values and beliefs that's really driving those actions. So the workbook in itself hopefully will be stretching exercises for all of us to reconsider what we do, why we do it, and who is it benefiting and who is it not benefiting.
So see, I mean, if you notice, he's saying examining beliefs, examining values. Basically, he's saying that we need to reconsider, transform our belief system so we can do a better job at teaching the students. So many of you are probably saying, well, I thought this garbage was, this woke garbage was done, that it was basically over. But it's not. I mean, clearly it's not in California. They're still teaching this garbage. And we need to remind everyone that this is a religion. It's a religion because it's a set of beliefs of what is good and evil. And this understanding that the human condition is inherently good. And so the evil appears when there are hierarchies, and it disappears if we get rid of these power structures. But that is just, again, total garbage. So let's go back and listen more to this really ridiculous set of values.
Kuhn and Jones is so important in visibilizing white supremacy culture as an organization. And so what we did was really look at the math classroom as its own organization and really thought about what are the ways in which we see white supremacy culture showing up specifically to like math. Like, how is it showing up in a math classroom? A lot of times anti-racist work centers on just like classroom instruction in general, but these are very, very specific towards math. And so, for example, we might think about focusing on getting the right answer. How is that a representation of or perpetuation of white supremacy culture? How can we think about expectations? And we do this all within the framework of those white supremacy culture characteristics.
Teaching a student to get the right answer is a form of white supremacy. I mean, you see, this is a religious view because getting the right answer first, well, that means there's a hierarchy that's created, right? You have a winner. You have somebody who actually is a really good studious student and one who is an achiever. That person gets the right answer. Well, all of a sudden they're the winners. And then you've got the other losers who don't really care to get the right answer. So you've got the winners and then you get the losers. And then once you have this hierarchy established, that is an evil situation. That's an evil circumstance to the woke religion, which, by the way, taxpayers are funding. And you know what? I'm glad it's changing. Well, Robert Kennedy had his Senate hearings this week, and Senator Bernie Sanders underscored how truly useless but comical these hearings can be. Watch.
Afraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Next one is no problem. Now you're coming before this committee and you say you just want to ask some questions, and yet your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness. Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are, that you're going to have your organization take these products off the market?
Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not part of it. I resigned from the board.
That was just a few months ago. You founded that. You certainly have power. You can make that. Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with
Are you
leadership.
supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive.
Are you supportive of this clothing, which is militantly?
Are you supportive of these onesies? Oh, give me a break. Save the moral outrage, Bernie. I mean, healthcare is so broken and he's yelling about onesies. Then Sanders pushed RFK to guarantee that all Americans get healthcare coverage.
If we want to make America healthy, will you assure the American people that you will fight to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to every single American?
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? That's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
protecting their interests.
Oh.
No. Man. Well, first of all, let me just point out one thing. Healthcare coverage is a luxury. It's not a right. But here's the larger point that was brought up. Big pharma has way too much power and influence on lawmakers, academia, and government agencies like the FDA. In fact, the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, is funded largely by big pharma. Now, if the FDA is dependent on big pharma, it would be tough for the FDA to be neutral, right, on its guidance of drugs. And remember in 2021, the FDA discouraged people to use ivermectin. That's that low-cost drug to treat. Well, the FDA posted on Twitter, "You're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop it." I mean, first of all, that doesn't even sound appropriate for a government agency to be posting. And doctors weren't able to prescribe this so-called miracle drug because it was against the science. It was against the FDA. So these doctors, several of them actually sued the FDA. And by the way, the doctors did win. The FDA settled that lawsuit last year, but that's a little bit too late. All this to say is, if we want America to be healthy again, it's not about giving everyone health care insurance coverage like Bernie wants. It's about taking a good, long, hard look at big pharma and these health agencies and their monopoly on our health. Well, lastly, Elon Musk and that arm and hand gesture back in the news again. His mom now urging him to sue CNN and Tim Walz for calling Musk a Nazi. Here's what Walz said on MSNBC if you missed it.
3 days,
debating, having them trying to debate that President Musk gave a Nazi salute. Of course he did.
Better lawyer up, Walls. Same goes for Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampell after blatantly saying Musk gave a Sieg Heil. Here's that video.
Time that Elon Musk decides to declare that globalist Jews are responsible for the great replacement of brown people into the United States. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. You know, the second time he said that Jews are pushing hatred against white people, that's a quote. You know, that was a little iffy. By the second Sieg Heil, I think he kind of loses the benefit of the doubt to be not accused of playing footsie with these Nazis. I'm not saying he's a Nazi. I'm saying the Nazis think he's a Nazi, which they very clearly did at this event. And these words were not said in a vacuum. As you pointed out, the leaders of AfD have embraced, in many cases, the Nazi heritage. They have wanted to take down the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin, saying it is inappropriate to recognize this horrific chapter in German history. And I just think it's horrific. I don't understand why this guy keeps getting the benefit of the doubt, whether or not he believes this stuff personally.
He didn't even mention the Nazi jokes he was making on Twitter. That actually got.
He's been given so many chances
about it.
Yeah.
I was hearing a lot of sighing, Scott. What's the deal?
I mean, we've moved on from Trump derangement syndrome to Elon derangement syndrome.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to defend his saying the Germans get to?
Let me let him finish, Catherine.
I love this game we play where you talk for 2 minutes, I talk for 3 seconds, and you freak out. So he has a long record of supporting the Jewish people. Number one. Number two, anybody who is asserting this thing he did on the stage the other day was a Sieg Heil, which I just heard you say. You know, lawyer up maybe, because absolute ridiculous thing to say. Under no circumstances.
The Nazis in Germany thought it was a Sieg Heil.
Under no
circumstances
was he doing anything other than expressing enthusiastically.
Why don't you do it on TV right now?
His appreciation.
Why don't you do it on TV right now if you think it's so?
Number three.
Why don't you do it right now? Go ahead. Do it. Man, she's awful. So Rampell is squealing to Scott Jennings to do that gesture, do it. Like it's supposedly some gotcha moment for him. But it's such a straw man argument to say that arm gestures like this means you're a Nazi, because if that's the case, then my church is full of them. And of course, that's not the case. But the better moment was when Jennings pointed out the irony of these so-called defenders of Israel, people like Rampell, who shrieked, "I'm a Jew," claimed to be the biggest supporters of the Jewish people. Yet they don't want Israel to defend itself after the October 7th massacre. Here's Rampell's post on X last May, where she writes, "Israel's offensives are destroying Gaza's ability to grow its own food." Really, Catherine? You don't want Israel to defend itself, and you're the big Jew defender? So please, you've shown your allegiance. Own it. And oh, by the way, you should lawyer up. Musk won't go down in history as a Nazi, as much as they would like him to. He will go down in history as shaping politics and economics because of his purchase of Twitter. Remember, he slashed Twitter's workforce by 80%, and to let everyone know he was serious about cleaning house, he walked through Twitter's headquarters with a sink. Yep, to say, yep, let that sink in. It's time for a change. CNN is now calling the federal government's effort to cut costs the Muskification of government. Musk will also go down in history as the person who allowed free speech to reign. You could say he's like Johannes Gutenberg, who invented the Gutenberg press in the 1500s. The printing press enabled Martin Luther's 95 Theses criticizing the Catholic Church to be rapidly published and disseminated, which led to the emergence of a new worldview, the Protestant view. And just like the Protestant Reformation dismantled the Catholic religion in the 1500s, we're now seeing the dismantling of this woke ideology. Are we in for a Christian revival? I don't know, but it sure does feel like it. I'm Bambi Francisco Roizen. I'll see you next week.